Thank you for returning. We're going to start our last candidate forum, which is City Council. And we're going to start our openings. Again, the opening statements will be 2 minutes, followed by the question and answering session from each of that will be asked by the audience. Responses will be 1 minute. The timekeepers are again located down front. They'll give you a 30-second warning, then a final warning when it's time to wrap up your statement. I'll try to let you finish your thoughts. We're going to start the opening statements with Ms. Williams, who was chosen to go first. So, Ms. Williams, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and creating a space for voters to engage with candidates and discuss issues. Thank you to all of the candidates for their willingness to run for elected office. My name is Carmella Williams. I've lived in Shaker for 20 years in the Moreland neighborhood. After serving 8 years in the Navy, I decided to move to Shaker for 3 reasons. 1, because I wanted a community that offered a solid school district for my son. 2, because I wanted easy access to public education. And 3, because I wanted to live in a community that was warm and welcoming. And Shaker provided that for us. During my time in Shaker, I've engaged in the community in a variety of ways. I am a longtime member of the Moreland on the Move Community Association, and I serve as co-president. I've served on various committees in my time here with both the city and schools, and I also served a 7-year term as a trustee on the Shaker Heights Library, Public Library Board. In 2019, I decided to run for city council to add another perspective to our city government. I currently chair the Neighborhood and Economic Development Committee and sit on the Safety and Public Works and DEI committees and the Fair Housing Review Board. I am eager to continue working along with my colleagues on council on the challenges and the opportunities ahead for our community, and I look forward to tonight's conversation.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Bixenstine. Ms. Kim Bixenstine.
Hello, I'm Kim Bixenstine, and I'm running for Shaker Heights City Council. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that it's Indigenous Peoples Day and recognize those people whose lands we're on. My husband and I moved to Shaker 40 years ago. We raised our 2 sons here, and they attended Shaker Public Schools from K through 12. I'm running because I truly love this city. I want to serve the entire community and help it continue to thrive. I've been very lucky to have had a great career. I've held a number of executive leadership positions, including serving as Chief Compliance Officer at University Hospitals, and before that as Vice President and Deputy General Counsel there. I also was Vice President and Chief Litigation Counsel at TRW, and before that I was a partner at the Jones Day firm. I currently work part-time. I'm semi-retired. I work as a mediator and an arbitrator. I have a long and broad record of community service. For Shaker, I've served for 11 years on the Shaker Heights Development Corporation Board, and I'm a citizen member of the Administrative Committee. I've served on many nonprofit boards. Some highlights are that I'm currently president of the Great Lakes Theater Board, and I previously chaired the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center and Planned Parenthood of Greater Cleveland boards. For Shaker, I want to focus on equitable economic development to ease residents' tax burdens, diversify the tax base, and promote both housing and commercial development to support the entire community, including less affluent areas. I want to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion so that all residents and business owners feel that they belong, and I've worked on those issues for decades. I am for sound stewardship of the city's financial resources, and I have the financial management and oversight experience to do that effectively, and I'm for sustainable parks and quality recreational facilities. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Jane Arnoff Logsdon.
Good evening. My name is Jane Arnoff Logsdon. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for inviting me and for being such a critical source of information in our community. I've lived in Shaker since 2016 and also graduated from Shaker Heights High School in 1991. Since moving back, I've been deeply involved in the community as a business owner, Shaker Home Maintenance, we may have fixed your house, a substitute teacher, I see some kiddos in the back, a co-founder of SHARC, Shaker Heights Anti-Racism Coalition, and the founder of the Buy Nothing Shaker Facebook group, which focuses on conservation and community building. I'm a licensed social worker with 20-plus years of experience, and I hold a master's degree in social science administration, which means social work. And I'm the mom of 2 boys, one of whom was in the Shaker schools till 10th grade, and one is in the class of 2024. In my discussions with residents, I've heard concerns about lack of services available to them, specifically youth and seniors, as well as the recreational deficit that applies to all citizens. I've personally been frustrated with the lack of recreational services and that I've had to go elsewhere to exercise. And not everyone is a skater. We are a city with wealth and resources. There really is no excuse for having limited recreation options that all residents can enjoy. And we need to better provide for seniors and youth. Though I know that the process of exploring recreational options is ongoing, it's time to push forward with improvements for our recreational facilities, viable options for youth specifically, and reestablishing a robust senior service department. I'm a leader who's brave and bold in my element when we're working cooperatively towards a common goal. I live in the Loma neighborhood, which historically has been underrepresented in Shaker. I have paid close attention to what is going on in the city since I moved back, and what I see is that people who are in the minority, people of color, and lower income get left behind or underrepresented. As a leader of SHARC and as someone who has grappled with these issues for much of my life, I will continue to push for equity in the city. This includes ensuring the recently passed resolution, maintaining a safe and just Shaker is put at the top of the council agenda and not lost in other council business. It is time for new voices in Shaker. Take a chance on me, you won't regret it. I ask for your vote on or before November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sean Malone.
Thank you. Thank you to the League and for all of you for being here tonight. My name is Sean Malone. I'm finishing my 2nd term on council, and I'm respectfully asking your vote for another term. I know this community well. I grew up in Shaker. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, all of whom went to the Shaker schools K through 12. My wife and I are sending our 4 kids to the Shaker schools. I also know this job well. I'm currently serving as vice mayor. I've chaired most of the committees and the city committees. I'm on the Shaker Heights Development Corporation board. I'm on the council's representative on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I've built constructive working relationships with the elected officials, with the district employees and the city employees. I have a good sense of how things can get accomplished in Shaker. I believe I have been fortunate enough to help accomplish a number of things in my time on council. I pushed for what became the Lee Road plan, for the recreation strategic plan, for a better working relationship with the school district. I helped set up the city's DEI and sustainability committees, and I proposed planting approximately 140 trees along the blue line of the rapid. But there's a lot more we need to do and a lot more that I would like to do in another term. I think we're going to need experienced leadership to implement the Lee Road plan, to make sure that our recreation strategic plan generates some improvements to our amenities that benefit the entire community. We need to keep investing in our infrastructure, not just our roads and our bridges, but our trees and our parks as well. I also think we need to keep building that relationship with the school district so that we can tackle some of the challenges in front of us, including a long-term plan for Sussex, a long-term plan for the middle school site, for Thornton Park, moving that bus garage on Lee Road so we can open up that area for future development. Above all, though, I really want to continue working to make Shaker a place where everybody feels like they're included, and we have a stronger sense of community across our 9 wonderful neighborhoods. I look forward to the conversation tonight. And again, thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And Mr. Geoff Lake.
Nancy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Nancy Moore.
Fine by me. Thank you very much to the League for inviting me. Thank you to all of you for coming, for being informed voters that you will be after this session. Good evening. My name is Nancy Moore, and I am running for re-election to Shaker Heights City Council in the November 7th election. I'm a 42-year resident of Shaker Heights, living in the Sussex area, parent of 4 grown children, all of whom attended the Shaker schools K through 12. I'm a grandparent of 8, all of whom live all over the nation and the world, in a sense to my regret, but my family is my rock, whether they live here or away, and I love visiting them, but Shaker is my home, and you are my community. Professionally, I hold a Bachelor of Arts degree from Vassar College and George Washington University and a Master of Science in Linguistics from Georgetown. I've worked as an educator, a freelance writer, but by far my most meaningful job has been serving in elective service to this community for the past 28 years, 8 on the school board and 20 on city council. Why am I asking for re-election tonight to City Council? I give you 4 reasons. First, I believe the city is moving forward in a good direction with good leadership. I'm an experienced leader, having served in elective office for 28 years. I'm a skilled leader. I know the system. I know how it works. I can help residents. I can help the rest of council through my experience. Last but not least, I'm a committed leader. I have no job but to serve you 24/7, and that's what I do. What do I hope to accomplish in the next 4 years on City Council, if reelected? I believe that the critical challenge facing our city is striking the right balance between economic development, a non-glitzy subject, infrastructure repair, and last but certainly not least, sustainability initiatives in the face of climate change. If we get this balance right, Shaker will have increasing future revenues, and we will be a successful community attracting everyone from far and wide. Thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration for your vote on November 7th.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Geoff Lake.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name's Geoff Lake, and what a wonderful thing it is to be part of a community that is so engaged that on a Monday night we don't really have room for everybody in the auditorium to be part of this. By way of introduction, I've been a Shaker resident in the Ludlow neighborhood for about 10 years. My family and I are members of City Church in Cleveland Heights. I work in continuous improvement in one of the large healthcare systems here in Cleveland. I'm a dad of 4. I've been married to my wife Liz for 15 years, and I grew up in the state of Connecticut. I have an MBA and a master's in social work. I'm also a licensed social worker. I'm running for city council because Shaker is a great town. My family is thrilled to have put down roots here. We love the diversity. We love the walkability of our neighborhood. We love the old, beautiful houses. Our local government laws and policies can be even better at supporting the success of our residents. My campaign slogan is for people and for business. And for people, I want to make it easier to buy a house. And I want to ensure that we meet the needs of all of our current residents when it comes to things like the building code. I also want to ensure that we have public facilities, rec facilities. I've spent a lot of time at our baseball fields with my 12-year-old son. I want to be sure that we have public rec facilities and senior services that support the engagement of all of our residents. For business, I want to continue the work of Van Aken District. I want to support the Lee Road District, but I also want to be sure that we take good care of the businesses that are already here. I don't want that development to come at the expense of the folks who've been doing business and supporting our town for so many years. Our family chose Shaker because of great schools, because of beautiful neighborhoods, because we really like our house, and because we have an engaged and diverse community. And I'm very pleased to seek the opportunity to serve this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, quickly, council has 7 members staggered for 4-year terms. There are 6 candidates tonight vying for 4 open terms on the November ballot. 3 council incumbents are continuing for another 2 years, and council members serve the entire community, not any ward or neighborhood. Council oversees an annual budget of roughly $76 million, operating in $11 million capital dollars. Council members generally have 3 council meetings / work sessions plus committee meetings each month. The salary is $10,440. Now we'll ask the round robin questions, and I'll start with Ms. Williams. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing the city, and how would you address them?
So what I see as the biggest challenges facing the community, the biggest, which is also our a great example of the type of community that we are, is the diversity that we have. It's both a, I don't want to say curse, but it's a challenge. It creates an opportunity and a chance for us to be balanced in our approach. We have a community where a single mom can reside and a CEO. So there's nothing easy about that. So our greatest challenge is making sure that we have a balanced approach that serves everyone in the community on every scale, including development in particular. We don't want to add and lose people by way of subtraction.
Thank you. Ms. Bixenstine?
Two issues come to mind. One is we have a significant problem with aging facilities and infrastructure, and we have to find creative, innovative ways to pay for rebuilding and renovating them, including everything from having a community center that's big enough to hold events, police department, the recreational facilities, city hall, and so on. Second is that our diversity here is precious, it is vibrant, but we still have racial issues to deal with, as evidenced by the charter amendment that was proposed relating to fair policing. And many thanks to City Council and the administration, and particularly my colleague, my friend over here, Carmella Williams, for her work in reaching a resolution. And I really think we need to devote, the City Council needs to devote thoughtful attention to prioritizing implementation of that resolution.
Thank you. Ms. Arnoff Logsdon?
Thank you. So just to kind of expand on what Kim was saying, I think it's, we have the diversity. The diversity is clear. Shaker is a vastly diverse economically and racially, but it's, and this is something that I've been taught, I've learned in the last few years, it's an equity issue. So the equity relates to the fact that there's still housing-wise, achievement-wise, school-wise, there is a vast difference in school achievement, in where people live, in what people have access to, in how people feel a sense of belonging and community. And I can tell you this from personal experience, being part of a transracial family. I can tell you this from being in the schools. I can tell you this from being in business here and having the conversations with some of the people who worked on fair ticketing, the people who actually wrote the fair ticketing legislation that now became the resolution that was passed. So I think it's equity.
Thank you. Mr. Malone?
Yes, our biggest challenge is modernizing a historic city that was built as an exclusive garden resort to make it something that's inclusive, accessible, and in partnership with our neighbors. At a time, I would add, when we have less money in Northeast Ohio than we did historically, when we have fewer residents in Northeast Ohio, even though Shaker is bucking that trend to some extent. And the way we do all that, I think, is we can't do it on our own. We have to build partnerships with the school district, with our neighboring communities, and we have to make strategic investments in our infrastructure, as we've talked about, but also in our amenities that give people a reason to move to Shaker. Our recreational facilities, we talked about that. Hopefully we can talk more about it. Our parks, and we need to create more destinations. Van Aken District is a great start. Lee Road will be another step. There's a few other spots in Shaker. They're kind of on the corners, the peripheries of Shaker. We can't think of Shaker as this walled-off island. We're with Warrensville, we're at Cleveland Heights. We need to build better partnerships with our neighbors.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
Thank you. I don't believe that the major challenge facing our city is one thing. It is a balance that we have to strike on City Council. City Council has the votes. We are going full steam ahead on economic development, and bravo for that, because if we don't increase our revenues through, and decrease our over-reliance on property tax, and increase our business and commercial tax revenues, then we won't position ourselves for a future that is viable in terms of the services that we offer. Secondly, I believe that a 100-year-old city needs infrastructure repair. We all know that. If we do not reinvest in our infrastructure, then we're going to have crumbling everything from the road down to below the road. And lastly, facing the challenges of climate change, sustainability is not an option anymore. We've treated it as an option up until now. We've done a little bit here and a little bit there, but we've made optional decisions. Now we're going to have to absolutely treat it as a priority. So that's the balance.
Thank you. Mr. Lake?
I think each neighborhood in our city has its own challenges. I agree that they're not all the same. My day job, I mentioned, is in continuous improvement, and we have this idea in the CI world that the way you learn what people need is to go and talk to them and to hear what they say. I think as a member of City Council, what's important is to go into each neighborhood, to go to the neighborhood associations, the block parties, et cetera, to hear what individual neighborhoods need. I also think we've heard a lot about infrastructure. I agree that's a problem. My road got repaved this year. I was really happy about that. It was bumpy, now it's smooth. However, in that process, I saw the way the city managed some of the contracts for the repaving, and I wasn't very happy with it. The equipment was parked next to our trees, and my neighbor who's super into gardening tells me that that'll kill that tree in the next few years. I think that we have the opportunity to manage our contracts as we work on our infrastructure in a way that is best for the whole city and gets the most value out of our dollars.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Bixenstine. How do you think council is doing in bringing a diversity of community members onto council committees? And also, what would you do to attract a broader range of residents to serve?
Thank you. Well, council right now, as you may know, has 3 of the 7 members are people of color. I serve on the City Administrative Committee, which includes a number of people of color. So by my experience, I serve on the Shaker Heights Development Corporation Board, which includes people from different neighborhoods, different socioeconomic backgrounds, and different races and ethnicities as well. So I think we're doing pretty well that way. But perhaps there's a way to reach out more to people to see who would want to serve on committees. Right now it's by appointment of the mayor. So there might be a way to engage people more who might be interested.
Thank you. Ms. Arnoff, Logsdon?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. How do you think council is doing in bringing a diversity of community members onto council committees, and what would you do to attract a broader range of residents to serve?
Thank you. I would say maybe a C rating grade. I do feel like, for instance, I was really involved in SHARC, the Shaker Heights Anti-Racism Coalition, and this was back in 2020 and 2021 when we started up. We meet with the mayor, we did meet with the former police chief, and we were kind of surprised that we weren't then pulled into DEI efforts, for instance. And that's, I mean, obviously, if you're talking people of color versus not, I don't meet that criteria, but we were people who were really involved in these issues, me and the other people in the group. So it made us feel like the city didn't necessarily want us in on the conversation. And another point is, in talking to people, I've talked to people who in my neighborhood who say, oh, I tried to get on such and such committee, or I emailed about this and I never heard back. So then they, what do people do? They kind of just say, oh, well, I guess the city, my voice is not so important, or maybe I got lost in the shuffle. But there's got to be, I think, a better effort to integrate people so that, again, everyone feels like it's their city.
Thank you. Mr. Malone?
Yes, I agree we can do better. And I'm going to put in a public service plug here for our DEI committee. So in Shaker, you can apply to be on, as Ms. Logsdon alluded to, apply on some of the more traditional committees. Our DEI committee is open to everyone. Yes, we do have hopefully three pretty soon, resident members who get to vote. But anybody who wants to come, you can come. I think we're the third Thursday of every month, 7 p.m. One of the initiatives that we're working on is trying to get, as I alluded to in my opening remarks, some more cross-neighborhood interactions in Shaker. We've got some neighborhoods where we have great neighborhood associations, others where we don't. The Moreland neighborhood has done a great job in recent years of building community there. We should be doing that in every neighborhood, and then we shouldn't be in our little silos in our neighborhoods. We should be talking to each other. Anybody that wants to listen into a council meeting, committee, they're all online. You can zoom in, you can listen, put your headphones on and put it on mute and just listen. They're all archived, so I would encourage anybody who's interested in serving on a committee or running for council. We're always recruiting, we're always interested in getting more engagement with the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
Thank you. The answer to the question, how are we doing on diversifying our committees and other parts of the city? Not good enough. And we need, that's not for want of trying. I think we're living in a time when community service comes after family responsibilities, work responsibilities, and other responsibilities related to health. And that's a good thing too. But we need to probably reach out more than we're doing to committees, to community associations, to meetings, to nonprofits, all of which we do. But convincing people, I've been chasing one person for quite a number of months to try and get them on the tree advisory board. It's very difficult and daunting to get people to volunteer right now. So I agree with Councilmember Malone. We've just got to try harder, and we've got to be more convincing, and we've got to recruit.
Thank you. Mr. Lake?
One of the things that they stressed in social work school is that decisions get made by the people who show up. But as a city, it's not always easy to show up. I think in pursuit of doing better, looking at things like the meeting times, specifically asking for neighborhood representation or community member representation. Also thinking about what are the childcare responsibilities that folks have during these meetings and how could we help to meet those. I think the last thing though is really convincing folks, is making the case, is sharing the why. Why is it important to be engaged with such and such committee? What work do we hope that committee will be able to accomplish? And how will those members really be able to influence change in their community? I think we have, as evidenced by our full room tonight, we have an engaged city. We have a bunch of people who really want to know what's going on and be part of what's going on. We need to leverage that.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Ms. Arnoff. Oh my goodness, Ms. Williams, thank you.
Thank you. So I would say that we are not perfect. I think we're doing better. There's always room for improvement. I would say that COVID, unfortunately, opened us up to an opportunity to allow people to engage differently. We all, if we did not know before COVID, we quickly learned about Zoom and Teams. So that allowed people to attend virtually. I would say that from our standpoint, how could we improve? We could be vigorous inviters, welcoming people in, be flexible. We've done this to some degree where we've adjusted meeting times based on the availability of residents that wanted to participate, and I think we can continue to do that. And the other thing I would ask is for the community to tell us if we can do something differently. Forgive me for going over time.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Ms. Williams. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Arnoff Logsdon. Do you support the district school funding request on the November ballot? Why or why not?
Yes, I do. I do with some reservations, but I also, in just hearing, I think it was Pam Scott who said there is an urgency to this funding request, and it can't wait. And as I said, I'm a substitute. I spent time in the high school and at Onaway mainly, and these buildings cannot wait. And for a district that takes so much pride in its schools, and we moved from a different suburb for one of our son's schooling needs, and the facilities do not match what the goals of what we want to portray and who we are as Shaker Schools. There's a huge need for improvement, so I do support it. Thank you.
Mr. Malone?
I do as well. We've waited far too long to improve the interior of our buildings. There's work that needs to go in terms of what happens in the classrooms as well, but yes, it's expensive. Do I wish it included recreation? Yes, but perfect can't be the enemy of the good. And I do think this is a thoughtful process. The community has spent several years now on it, and we need to move forward. Yes, we need also good oversight of the implementation of that plan, and we need, as I talked about earlier, even better partnership with the school district and the city, because we're going to potentially have a vacancy at the middle school site. We're going to have Thornton Park, which is a thorny decision that the city's going to have to address, and then there'll be other areas of cooperation, whether it's at Shelton Park and Lee Road with the bus garage, or even the Woodbury, which will become the middle school site potentially. So again, I support it, but we're going to need a lot of work as a community collectively, and all of you are going to need to stay engaged on it as well over the next 5, 10, 15 years to implement it all.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
Yes, I've supported this levy. I've endorsed it as an individual, and I wanted to tell you why. I spent 8 years, prior to 8 years, I spent as a teacher. I understand the needs, the educational needs of funding, both in the state of Ohio and the nation. We are in a desperate state of needing support for public education in the state of Ohio. I believe that my 8 years on the school board has reinforced my notion that this is a community that values its schools above all else, and therefore I believe that we have not been on the ballot since 2014, 2017 respectively for operating and capital. I know full well from my experience as a school board member that this school district spends its money wisely and carefully, and I would not hesitate as a resident to allocate those funds that a property tax increase would entail. One caveat, I understand that not everyone in this community is able to pay the kind of an increase that this property tax will require. And the disparate effect on our community is something well known to city council members, and we recognize that, and we're ill at ease with it. Thank you.
Mr. Lake?
Our schools are the heart of our community. They are the identity for most of our neighborhoods. My family has had a great experience at Onaway and honestly kind of a mixed experience at Woodbury. I love our schools, and I really want to support a plan that will be successful because I want our schools to meet the needs of all of our students, especially mine. Regarding this levy, I am concerned about the plan as written. I'm concerned that it's a lot of money for not a terribly well fleshed out plan as far as I can see. And I have struggled mightily with whether to support it or not. But I've heard from a lot of residents who say, we don't have the extra money for our property taxes. And that's enough of a concern coupled with not being convinced that this plan adequately meets our needs as a town. I won't be voting for this.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Thank you. So the short answer is yes, I do support the levy. I'll quickly tell you something. I said earlier that I was a single mom, if you didn't get that, catch that. When I moved here, I knew the taxes were high and I knew it would be a challenge. And one of the things I did in addition to working full-time was that I went to school to earn a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Now I'm an empty nester and I'm part of that 68, 70% that do not have children in the district. However, the way I see it, I do have children in the district because I feel an obligation or a duty or responsibility to the kids. Now, I say that to you now that I support the levy, and I totally understand that there are people that will struggle with this. And I think as an elected official, part of my responsibility is to work on other ways to try and help support community members. But I think this levy is needed, so I do support it.
Thank you. And Ms. Bixenstine?
Yes, I support it as well. It's undisputed that we have aging facilities. Our students, our faculty, and our staff deserve updated facilities with air conditioning, that are tech compatible, that are conducive to modern learning. It's also critical to our property values and the reputation of our community. I think the pre-K element is really important in narrowing the achievement gap that was talked about at length in the prior forum. I think I've heard some objections in addition to the cost, which I understand is substantial, but we need to take advantage of the 37% match from the state, that there are also very significant challenges in the classroom, but I trust our school board and our administration to be able to address those challenges at the same time that they're implementing this facilities plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Malone. What can the city do to make streets safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and other drivers?
Well, the Lee Road plan, as we've talked about a little bit before, is going to start with a complete overhaul of Lee Road, which I would argue is, if not our most dangerous road, right up there with any other most dangerous spots. So we'll have a road diet. It'll go to one lane in each direction with a center turning lane. We'll have dedicated bike lanes on the outside of the road. Our hope is that will be similar to what happened with Van Aken district, where when the city realigned the I think it was a 5-way, maybe even 6-way intersection there at Van Aken, Chagrin, Warrensville, that led eventually to the private sector investment. We hope something similar happens in the Lee Road corridor as well, and it's going to continue into the city of Cleveland. It's going to go at least all the way to Miles Road, if I'm not mistaken, and hopefully someday all the way to 480, because that road is dangerous. There are other spots. We've got Van Aken Bikeway. It's going to be a year-long planning process from Farnsley at the Van Aken district all the way up to Lee Road. There's going to be a bike lane there in both directions as well. And ideally, someday, maybe all the way to Shaker Square. But yeah, we're doing a lot to invest in our bike and pedestrian infrastructure.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
I believe that in addition to what Councilmember Sean Malone said, all the Van Aken Bikeway plans, the Lee Road bike lane plans, the Shaker Median Trail, which has already been constructed and which goes all the way down to the lake, the pedestrian crossing walks that we're installing increasingly at different intersections, and bicycling. They're called sharrows on different streets where bicycles can go in dedicated lanes, are all going to increase safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. I will say that as we treat our parklands as more than just passive greenways, there will be increasing trails, and these trails will be both for pedestrians and bikes. And when we are able to ride through our parklands safely through these trails that connect our different green spaces, it will be an alternative to going on the roads.
Thank you. Mr. Lake?
So I know I don't look like it, but I really like to ride my bike. I ride my bike down to the main campus of Cleveland Clinic. I will likely ride tomorrow morning. And from my house down to there, I will be on separated off bike lanes, some of them 2 lanes, especially down the hill next to the water company, nearly the whole way. But I won't be on those here in Shaker. Here in Shaker, I'll ride up past Southerly Park, and I'll ride up South Park, and I'll mostly be on the road. I think the use of bike lanes, I think separating bikes off from traffic is a really good thing, because one of my favorite things in the world is not getting hit by a car. And I think that us creating more bike lanes is a good idea. I do want to agree with Sean. One of the most dangerous roads I cross on the regular is Lee Road, and I'm really looking forward to that not being the case.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Thank you. I don't have much to add to what has been said already, and it's late, so I don't want to take more time than necessary. But I will tell you that I enjoy riding my bike too. I recently got purchased an e-bike, and best thing for me. But I do support and think one way to make people safer is to try and separate bikers from vehicle traffic as often as possible is one of the best solutions, and we're doing that. We're discussing that in some of the plans we have.
Thank you. Ms. Bixenstine?
Yes, and in talking to residents, I've heard a lot of concerns about speeding traffic. I've heard it in the Moreland community, I've heard it on Shelburne Road. So I'm very supportive of the Lee Road Action Plan. It's something that we've worked on the Shaker Heights Development Corporation Board in collaboration with the city. I ride a tandem bicycle with my husband. That's the only way I can keep up with him. And so I'm very supportive of the bike lanes coming on Van Aken and Lee Road, but I do think we need to also focus on speeding in other areas. I think that it's primarily falls to the police department, but there perhaps are other things we can do to slow down traffic in many neighborhoods in the community.
Thank you. And Ms. Arnoff Logsdon?
Yes, so I'm not a biker. I guess that makes me the minority here, but I am a walker. And when people were talking, I was thinking about it's an idea of, just like Geoff, I wouldn't want to get run over either, but if people know me, they actually do stop and they wave and they don't try to, if I'm at the crosswalk, they don't try to plow me down. But I mean, to me, it's also kind of a community thing. I mean, we're a big community, 30,000 people, so you can't know everybody, but it's something about the culture. There's a really heavy, dense driving culture here in Shaker. And I mean, I think there are ways that we could break it down, and to me, it also relates to some of the things that we talked about earlier, connecting with people, knowing our neighbors. That's why I love being in all different parts of Shakers, because, I mean, you get to know people, and they don't want to run you over. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Ms. Moore. What is your opinion of the Horseshoe Lake policy?
Oh, boy. You had to ask me, right? For the past 28 years, or almost, I guess 20 years to be exact, I've been a member of liaison from City Council on the Donebrook Watershed Partnership. I currently serve as its president, full disclosure. In addition to that, I chair the Shaker Heights Sustainability Committee and the Tree Advisory Board. So I'm deep into sustainability efforts. When the sewer district decided that they were not going to fund the renovation of the dam at Horseshoe Lake, then to me, the next best thing that we could have done is to restore the Doan Brook. Restoring brooks and waterways means that we're bringing back life to Lake Erie. Lake Erie is our greatest natural resource. There is absolutely no better investment that we could make as a community. I understand that people are very sad to lose their lake, but we will have a park that will be the renown of all of this area, and hopefully will draw more residents forever. Thank you.
Mr. Lake?
We love Horseshoe Lake Park. We like to picnic there. My kids like to climb on the rock thing and the rope thing. I don't know what the real names are. I think that the regional sewer districts plan is a good one. I would like to see I'd like to see a value add in the use of native plants and native species, because I think that that's good for reducing the impacts of climate change. I think it's good for the native ecosystem. I was very interested when I heard that sewer district plan about how Horseshoe Lake actually contributed to flooding down in University Circle, and I have some memories of biking home from work through 6 or 8 inch deep water, which was an adventure. And I like the idea that we can restore this area to its natural beauty, and we can do that in a way that also takes good care of our neighbors downstream.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Thank you. I agree with the decision. I think it was the right decision. I respect the feelings of loss by members of our community, but I think it was the appropriate decision environmentally as well as fiscally. And I am thankful of the community engagement that the various sessions that were held to give the community an opportunity to chime in on the plan in general, but also on the design going forward. And that's not over, so I hope everyone continues to stay engaged in that regard.
Thank you. Ms. Bixenstine?
I understand and sympathize with those who are upset about the loss of the lake, but I agree with the decision for a number of reasons. First, under the sewer district's policies, they can't rebuild a dam if it doesn't meet one of 4 functions: water supply, flood control, electricity, or commerce, and Horseshoe Lake Dam does not do that. And so it would have been prohibitively expensive for Shaker Heights to rebuild the dam, given all of the needs that we have in this community. From an environmental point of view, my understanding is from the engineers, environmental specialists, that it's safer to restore the streams. There's a less risk of flood. And I agree with what's been said. The plans that the sewer district has proffered for this park are spectacular. It will be a much larger park. It will be at least 27 acres compared to 6 acres before. And I'm really excited that the city of Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights have are agreeing to fund other amenities such as pollinator gardens and sensory-friendly gardens and so on. I think it's going to be a fabulous place.
Thank you. Ms. Arnoff Logsdon?
Just echoing what Kim said, I really like a lot of elements of the plan. I think it's sustainability, it supports sustainability, it's cooperative, and it makes it even more of a destination. And we know, I mean, I haven't even touched on my environmental connections. I'm a solid waste ambassador with the solid waste district, and I drive an electric car, and I recognize the urgency of sustainability, and that makes to have a place that is a destination place where people can go and be in nature and have connections to native species and support the environment and walk around. I mean, it's a win-win to me. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mr. Malone?
None of us who were incumbents up here ran on a platform of getting rid of Horseshoe Lake in 2019, and none of us were happy about what transpired. But when it became apparent that the cost to rebuild a new dam would far outstrip anything that the city was capable of paying, the logical decision was to accept the support of the sewer district in restoring those streams to their natural state, the way they were before the Shakers dammed them several hundred years ago for commercial purposes. I mean, there is no commercial or real environmental benefit that the lake serves. I think the mayor and his staff deserve some credit for negotiating an approximately 65-35, I think it is, % split with the city of Cleveland Heights, because previously the split was 100% Shaker, 0 for Cleveland Heights in terms of maintenance. So going forward, that will be, I think this is an example of the kind of partnerships we need on a regional basis. It's worth noting that the sewer district is only a partner in this because of a lawsuit the city of Shaker Heights filed about 10 years ago to ensure a regional stormwater management approach. So I think it's an example of regional partnerships solving a tricky problem for us.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Lake. How should council implement changes to policing in the framework for maintaining a just and safe Shaker Heights?
I've talked a lot tonight about liking community engagement, and when we think about the police reform that's been implemented, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the work of the young people who pushed it and who accomplished that change. My sincere hope is to see fair policing in our city. A city where we have 37% black residents, but more than 70% of the traffic stops are of black folks. Those numbers shouldn't be in our city. I really like the use of the listening sessions that are part of that reform. I expect to participate in them as a citizen. I want to see benefits. I want to see our city listen to our citizens, as I've spoken of before, hear their needs and suggestions and implement them. And I want to push for that as a member of City Council. Having seen police in my own neighborhood, I've seen great professionalism, and I've also not loved the way the police have chased some folks through my neighborhood. I want to see our city do well and do right by the people who live here.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Thank you. Could you repeat the question,
Sure.
please?
How should council implement changes to policing in the framework for maintaining a just and safe Shaker Heights?
Okay. I think council should be engaged in that process. I plan to be. I think council should be open-minded, open-hearted, practical, realistic, and idealistic and optimistic. You know, our community, again, diversity, the diversity of our community, and being willing to acknowledge that everyone doesn't have the same exact experience is not disrespectful to the police, nor should it be we be disrespectful to residents that have a different point of view. I think we should set a tone in that process that helps the framework be implemented in a way that helps improve the experience of everyone in Shaker and that passes through.
Thank you. Ms. Bixenstine?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I work now as a mediator, and so I've honed my listening skills and my ability to bring people with diverse points of view together, and I believe in the power of compromise. So I'm very much in favor of this resolution and this compromise. I think it's really important that City Council allocates funds for the implementation and prioritizes implementation. We have an opportunity to do this well. We need to ensure that we are allocating money for expanding the pilot with having a social worker go on calls with police to address calls that involve mental health issues and expand the mental health resources. We need to have broad input, a good facilitator and broad representation and input in this community listening tour. We need to have an oversight committee, citizen committee that has broad representation and is well qualified. And we need to ensure that there is transparency and accessibility of the police data.
Thank you. Ms. Arnoff, Logsdon?
So, I mean, City Council, as I understand it, has to be at the heart of this resolution that was passed and has to be the kind of stewards of it going forward. And there is, I mean, it's an issue that's close to my heart, as I've talked about before. When we would go, I mean, we did a little bit of a listening project through SHARC, through the Shaker Heights Anti-Racism Coalition. People would come and talk to us and tell us about their experiences with policing, which weren't always positive. And we tried to advocate. I'm not saying it to criticize because it's not it's such a complex issue, and I'm not going to speak for anybody except myself. But I think it's just crucial that City Council has people who are really understand these issues and are willing to listen and are willing to find the right people to implement the issues and take this seriously, and it stays at the forefront of the agenda. Because again, it's an equity issue. It's Shaker. And we could also we've gotten a lot of national attention, and we could continue to get that attention for a city who's doing it right.
Thank you. Mr. Malone?
Yes, the disparities that in ticketing that Mr. Lake mentioned earlier and that were the subject of the ballot initiative are very troubling, and they should be troubling to anybody who serves an elected office. So we need to make sure that our listening project takes the time to completely understand the issue. It'll be a chance for the law enforcement officers to communicate more closely with residents. We've got a great new police chief who's committed to accountability, transparency, community-based policing. Shaker Heights is not perfect in our policing, but we are, I think, a top-notch department in Northeast Ohio. We're trying to do the right thing. We have a mentality of continuous improvement, rather. I also think the advisory committee will be a great kind of following in the tradition of a lot of Shaker committees where we get resident experts who have experience in a particular topic to advise the city. And so as council members, we, as others have said, we need to keep an open mind and figure out whether there's anything else that we can do policy-wise to improve relations between the community and our police.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
Because our lived experiences are not all the same, and because we are a diverse community, I want to emphasize that in my 42 years of living here, I have found that the progress within the police department in expanding the type of community policing that this community wants done, it has been considerable. I'd like to add a few other things that I think we need to do and are doing, and this does not. I want to give credit where credit is due. First of all, we've hired the first African-American police chief in the history of our Shaker Heights Police Department. He has implemented a community policing policy. We have ongoing de-escalation training and a special diversity recruitment policy that attracts and is designed to attract and retain a more diverse force. We have a Citizens Police Academy. I'm a proud graduate of the class of 13. It tells residents what we're doing with police and why police act the way they do. And it's a two-way communication street. We'll start a listening project. We'll have 24-hour mental health response team coverage. We'll have a database accessible to the public that will have ticketing data on it. And we will continue our CALIA, which is a national certification obtained by very few police departments. This means we keep the strength.
Thank you. And we're going to close out with our closing statement, and we're going to start at the opposite end and work our way back towards the moderator. So we're going to start with Mr. Lake.
A friend of mine has a Cleveland sweatshirt, and on the back it says, "Work hard and be nice." That's the sort of people we are. I think that's the sort of people our town are. We are certainly a town of hardworking people. We're also a town of people who value being nice and caring and respectful to one another. Those are some of the things I like about our town. If I'm elected, I will work tirelessly to ensure that our policies enable our residents in our town to flourish. I will celebrate the diversity of Shaker Heights. I want to see a city government that meets the needs of all of our people from all of our neighborhoods and that engages all of our citizens. If you like what I've had to say, I really would appreciate if you'd vote Geoff Lake. But I also want to acknowledge we have an embarrassment of riches up here. Our town is going to be in great hands. I'm happy about that. That being said, though, I have some green yard signs out in the hall, and I'd love it if you take one.
Thank you. Ms. Moore?
I think that after the years and decades that I've lived in this community, the one thing that keeps coming back to me again and again is that this community has the very, very best people that I have ever had the pleasure to live next door to, down the street from, across the river from, across the brook from. And what it deserves, in my opinion, is very serious, committed, skilled leaders. What it's had the privilege, in as long as I've known it, to have are those leaders. I think I have never seen an election that hasn't produced a result that is consistent with that kind of decision-making. I have faith that this will be another one in the long line of elections where this community is able to select the leaders that are very best and that want to do the best for it. I submit that I would be honored to be counted among those. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malone?
Thank you. Yes, serving on council is truly a privilege. It's a great job. People ask me all the time, why do you do that? Because I really enjoy it. I mean, and I hope that you all believe I'm doing a good job. I believe I'm capable of doing it well for another 4 years. It would be a privilege to get to work on some of the things we've talked about tonight, implementing that Lee Road plan, ensuring that that recreation strategic plan generates some fiscally responsible improvements to our amenities that benefit the entire community. Keeping that partnership strong with the school district so we can tackle things like expanding pre-K, maybe even at Sussex and at Ludlow, moving that bus garage on Lee Road so we can open up that area for development. We also need to keep investing in infrastructure. We've talked about it. I know reducing emissions is something we haven't talked a lot about, but what I really would like to continue to spend my time on is keep building those cross-neighborhood relationships that we have in Shaker, so that this is a place where everybody feels included, you don't feel isolated, and that we all feel like we can have access to our elected officials, to our fellow neighbors, and we can build a stronger Shaker. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Arnoff Logsdon?
Thank you. I'd again like to acknowledge the League of Women Voters for tonight and for all the events that they put forward to help us stay informed about what's going on in our city. And to my fellow candidates, thank you for making this a friendly race and just being nice people. It doesn't always happen. But we cannot wait to be a city that represents all citizens, not just those who have the means or who are in the majority. I live next to the Lee Road Action Plan site. And as a business owner and creative thinker, I guarantee my voice will help push it forward in a way that benefits the city fiscally and builds a space where all people feel welcome. By investing in this area of Shaker, we can send a message that people in the Lomond and Moreland neighborhoods matter. I bring deep connections and a bold spirit to council, along with the ability to work towards a common goal of supporting and improving our city for all residents. As a business owner, social worker, mother, and community activist, I've stood up and spoken for people who needed a voice, and I will do that as a council person too. My connections to the city will serve me as a city official who serves all of our citizens. Again, I ask for your confidence in me and for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bixenstine?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you for all of you for your interest in our municipal elections and the people who are watching online. I am proud to have the endorsement of the Shaker Democratic Club, the Cleveland Stonewall Democrats, the current mayor, the two former mayors of Shaker. I am very happy to have the support of people in all of our neighborhoods, people of different socioeconomic backgrounds, people of different races, political views, and faiths. And I commit that if I am elected, I will do my best to represent the entire community, the best interests of everyone. And I ask for your vote on or before November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Williams?
Thank you. You know, there was a question that was in my mind that was not asked tonight, and the question was, what don't you like about this process? And what I do not like is how often it requires me to say I, because I've been given the opportunity to be part of a collective we as a member of City Council. In my work in the community with the schools and various other things, I've been part of a collective we to help improve situations in our school, to help improve our community, and put forward legislation or approve legislation that would help do that. So I will guarantee you that if you choose to elect me to a second term, I will continue to add perspective to our deliberations. I will continue to collaborate with our partners, and I will continue to lift and celebrate the beauty of our community. And I respectfully ask you for your vote in November, or before if you vote early. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I'd like to thank, while I still have my voice, I'd like to thank all the candidates for coming. Early voting starts Wednesday, October the 11th. Please vote. And thank you all to the audience for coming out and sharing your thoughts and questions to the candidates. Thank you.
Thank you.